Welcome to the Get Trauma Informed podcast, dedicated to unraveling the complexities of trauma, its pervasive impact, and the journey towards holistic recovery and realignment. If your radiance has ever felt muted, like I and thousands of others, you're in the right place to reignite your inner light. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma Informed podcast. Well, hello there, and welcome back to week number 2. We have embarked upon taking a deeper dive into veteran versus civilian PTSD and complex PTSD, and we are now entering week number 2. So I hope we can shake off week number 1 and take a deeper dive. And I do hope that you have a dedicated notebook, because we're going to give you some prompts at the end of our conversation or our mini trauma recovery talk today. And we're going to give you some prompting so that you can start to continue the work of rewiring your brain, right? So now in week number 2, we're going to talk about rewiring the wounded brain, neuroplasticity, recovery, and God's design, okay? And again, I'm called the Trauma Informed Girl, all things recovery, for a specific reason. And if you've been listening to us for a little bit now, you'll kind of know what my story has been, being a sufferer of complex PTSD and depression and anxiety, to name a few. And we embarked upon the Get Trauma Informed podcast and started to unravel all these different types of recovery tools and techniques and classes and certifications. And now we have launched quite a few projects. If you go on over to the Oasis Wellness CTRS.com website, you'll see many recovery tools that will help you meet you where you are, right? Your trauma is just as unique as your fingerprint. So we often say it's not a good idea to compare yourself, your recovery, or your trauma to anybody else's, because your trauma is valid. It happened to you, but now we're changing that script to say it happened for you, right? And we're finding purpose in all of that pain. So let's move on into week number 2 of our 12-week trauma recovery, specifically geared towards our veterans. Program is The Warrior Within, and this is the trauma recovery journey. So today we're going to take a deeper dive into something very powerful, something that proves that no matter what trauma has done to the brain, recovery is possible. In fact, it's built into your design, right? We're talking about neuroplasticity, a big, specific scientific word with a deep spiritual meaning. Okay, so let's talk about, in layman's terms, what is neuroplasticity? Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change and reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. Right. And I know when I first was diagnosed with a closed head injury, I didn't understand about the neural pathways. I didn't understand how we can fire those neural pathways up. I was in such fear because, damage to the brain, that's heavy. But what I did understand is that there are ways to recover and rejuvenate. In simple terms, your brain is not broken, it's wounded. A wound, a wounded thing can recover. Let's let that sit with us just a little bit, right? When trauma happens, whether through war, abuse, or chronic stress, it alters how our brain wires together, okay? But through recovery practices like journaling, therapy, prayer, movement, and intentional relationships, those trauma wired patterns can be overwritten. And that's the good news, right? What happens to the brain during trauma? The amygdala goes into overdrive. That's your fear center, okay? The hippocampus, your memory center, it shrinks. So trauma memories become fragmented. And the prefrontal cortex, your rational brain, it goes offline, making it hard to think clearly or make decisions, right? Can you imagine that though? And that's something that we hide when we're going through trauma because it's like, again, I talk about the kaleidoscope where the picture is distorted, but you're expected to show up in your full adult self, but that picture is distorted. And in order to override that or overwrite that, we must do the work, right? This is why trauma survivors feel stuck, um, feel foggy, and like they're constantly in survival mode. But here's the amazing part. The neuroplasticity, the brain can rewire itself with new thoughts, behaviors, and beliefs. You don't just recover emotionally, you're recovering biologically. And I think that's the point that we don't understand enough about. And we say snap out of it. We say you'll be fine. But just because we don't have enough understanding about the biochemical reaction that's going on, about the rewiring. Recovery is God's design. Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's not just a feel good verse, it's neuroscience backed by scripture. Okay. And here we are again. God designed your mind with the ability to recover and renew itself. Recovery isn't just a hope, it's a hardwired feature. Wow, take that in. You don't have to be defined by your trauma. You're being refined through it. Okay. And from the life of the trauma informed girl, I'm going to share as we walk through these 12 weeks, I'm going to share a little bit more insight into my life journey and why I'm so passionate about get trauma informed so we can live a better and more fulfilled life. Whether it came from wartime or whether it came from civilian time, it's still a fact of life that we have the power to change. Okay. So when I was dealing with complex PTSD, I felt like my brain was broken. I couldn't focus. I lost time. I cried in the middle of conversations. But every time I journaled, I rest, I prayed, or I spoke affirmations, I was unknowingly at the time rewiring my brain. My broken brain did not mean a broken destiny. It meant I had to learn to recover differently, right? And I often use the parable of Denzel Washington being placed in a broken plane in the movie Flight. He talks about he said, they put me in the broken plane, but he didn't just sit there and crash. He flipped that sucker over and he took those people to safety and landed in safety. And that's what it feels like in a broken brain. But we must know that we have the power to change that, right? So being dropped in a broken brain does not mean the end of your destiny. It just means that we need to rewrite that story, okay? And I'm going to give you a layman's term summary of everything that we just talked about. Trauma changes the brain, but it does not destroy it. Recovery is a process of retraining the brain. Your brain is adaptable, not defective. You're not crazy, you're recovering. Okay. I gave some scripture references, and I'll give you here Romans 12:2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? That means we have the ability to renew our mind. Isaiah 43:19. See, I am doing a new thing. I am making a way in the wilderness, okay? And your prompting for this week, your reflective prompting, what thoughts, beliefs, or habits feel like they were written by your trauma? What truth do you want to start writing over them? What do you want to, how do you want to rewrite your story? This is your ability. You are the author of your next chapter. Let's start rewriting it. One thought, one choice, one breath at a time. I hope this was helpful. I look forward to seeing you in week number 3. Go out and start rewriting your story. One of the things that I want to leave you with, if you're in an area where it's nice and warm, you can go sit under a tree, feel the warmth of the sun upon you, or go buy some water. Anything that helps to bring you back to center and help you to ground would be a great way for you to begin to rewrite your story and rewire yourself. All righty, I look forward to seeing you on week number 3. It's time to buckle up. No more suffering in silence. Our Power Pack journey to recovery and realignment starts now. Remember, you were collateral damage on someone else's warpath. Trauma is not your fault. Recovery, however, is your responsibility. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma Informed podcast.